Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Game Changer. I'm Maryam Zia. Tonight we will be discussing an important issue that is going to be potentially changing global economic order, that is de-dollarization. For decades, US dollar has been the currency that has been used in, of course, international transactions and international trade. But now a lot of countries, including Brics, are looking towards other currency alternatives. And there are many reasons, including, of course, the background of this movement, which includes geopolitical tensions, sanctions, and economic challenges. But of course, in the context of all this, the president-elect, Donald Trump, warns of severe tariffs against nations that are looking towards de-dollarization. Specifically, of course, he talks about Brics nations. In today's program, we will be talking about the world and the movement that is de-dollarization. What is the reason behind this campaign or this movement behind de-dollarization, and how this is going to be impacting not only the US economies but economies of developing countries and of course nations like Pakistan. And when we look at de-dollarization, how is it achievable? That remains an important question. We will be discussing all these dimensions in today's program, and to discuss this and more, we are joined in the studios by Mr. Shaharyar, who is analyst. Welcome to the program. We're also joined online by Dr. Nasir Iqbal, who is an economist. Welcome to the program. And we are joined online by Mr. Xizhong, who has joined us from China. Welcome to the program. Mr. Shaharyar, when we of course look at the recent statement by President-elect Donald Trump, of course he has threatened of 100% tariffs on the countries that are looking towards de-dollarization. How do you interpret these threats? How these are going to be impacting US on economy?
So Maryam, thank you so much. It's a very important topic that you have taken up today. There is like a lot of discussion on various countries that are moving towards some sort of de-dollarization, especially in the context of Brics nations, which constitute a large portion of the global GDP. And most of those countries, probably Russia, which is like taking the lead in this scenario, is coming up with alternative methods of creating liquidity in local currencies. So this is the discussion that is taking place with like various economic models and financial models that are being discussed under the whole framework of de-dollarization. But first of all, we have to like understand how the dollar is a dominant currency and what would it take for other currency or any other currency, especially under the framework of Brics, to overtake or replace the dollar in any sense. So first of all, what that currency needs to have is that currency needs to be backed by economic stability. That basically means that the economy of that country should be very strong and it should always be showing a lot of growth. Other than that, the financial markets should have a large liquidity of that currency, and that currency should be available for exchange at any time. It should be stable in nature. Other than that, there should be trust in institutions in which a very strong regulatory framework is required to back that currency. So if there are any regulatory challenges, those challenges can be mitigated. And last and definitely not the least, global political influence of the currency or the country that backs that currency. That country should have an very strong economy and a lot of like geopolitical influence as well. And that creates a sort of a trust and economic backing and the trust of the countries that want to engage with that currency. So all of these factors are very important.
Right. Let me take this on with Mr. Xizhong, who is Senior Research Fellow at Chahar Institute. Mr. Xizhong, of course, when we look at the recent statement of President-elect, first of all, what's your take on this, especially his aggressive stance towards Brics nations, which of course China is part of? Do you think this could potentially backfire on US?
I think because there is financial hegemonism. So actually, the world is fighting for the American financial domination. De-dollarization primarily revolves around three aspects. One is the international trade settlement currency, one is investment currency, and the third is reserve currency. The underlying cause behind the periodic climaxes of de-dollarization is the decline in US soft and hard power, as well as the credit foundation of the US dollars. And the short-term triggers include the U.S. Shift away from globalization and the trend towards, you know, weaponizing the U.S. dollars. America uses dollars as weapons. Although the weakening of the US dollar's dominant position may accelerate periodically, the fundamental dominance of the US dollar is unlikely to change in the short term. The internationalization of other currencies like Chinese RMB is not mess with the de-dollarization. China has consistently maintained an appropriate balance and flexibility in its participation in both the dollar economy and non-dollar economy. And China strives to unlock the regional potential of the RMB, engages in global financial governance through the RMB cross-border payment and settlement system, and balances and satisfies the diverse financial governance needs of various countries. Thank
Right,
you.
right. Dr. Nasir, when we look at, of course, the recent statement of President-elect, how do you see this statement? And in your opinion, how feasible is Trump's protectionist policy in the long term for United States, especially in this globalized, increasingly globalized financial system, where a lot of countries, including the Brics nations, are now of course going towards trade in other currencies or their local currencies as well?
I think we have to look this statement in a very broader term rather than looking into the one statement by the president. So look into the way the international community is engaged in this globalized world. So you cannot put any restriction on any country and you cannot exclude any country from this globalized world. So yes, of course, every country is looking for maximizing its own value, its own GDP, its own growth. Every country have a right to do that. Yes, if the BRICS is looking for some sort of an alternative solution to accommodate their own trade, it would be a good initiative. But practicality of such initiative would always be a big question. Look
And,
at the
and,
EU.
and that's my next question, that how feasible is the BRICS, of course, proposal to create a common currency to rival the US dollar?
Yeah, I'm coming to that as well. Look at the example of EU. You know that the success of EU is depend upon the sharing the similar culture, sharing the similar some sort of pattern and history that compel them to have a give and take policy to come up with a model that they are currently using. But if we look into the all other nations, even BRICS, even ECO, even SARC, even other nations, they don't share such type of similarities in their framework. So yes, they have a good initiative. They are looking for that type of alternative solution, but practicality of these solution is always difficult. And we should be very clear that the Trump statement is very much clear in terms of putting a strong stance by giving a clear signal to other nations that look, though we are struggling, but still we have enough power to manipulate the rest of the world. And
Right, right,
yes, they
right.
cannot live alone. Even if you look into the power of these four nations like China, India, Russia, they all are the big player in the global market. So they cannot put a very simply this 100% tariff rate on these products because it will create a lot of hurdle within the economy of the US. So it's not a very easy solution in any way from the both side of the countries.
Right, right. We are now joined online by Mr. Abid Sulehri, who is a senior economist. Welcome to the program, Mr. Abid. When we look at this current movement of de-dollarization, of course, with BRICS countries and BRICS Plus controlling 42% of global central bank reserves, how significant is their role in increasing or accelerating or speeding up de-dollarization?
Well, we need to look at this issue from two aspects. First, why this need for de-dollarization initiated, and second, the Trump statement on subjecting BRICS to 100% tariff if BRICS doesn't stop its movement for de-dollarization. So, de-dollarization, the need occurs because of excessive use of Western sanctions on different economies, including Iran and Russia, but to many other companies, for example, the companies operating from China and many others. De-dollarization was felt important for debt-affected countries, including Pakistan, whereby a major chunk of their debt is in US dollars, and they want to trade in third currency, either through a currency swap agreement or through barter trade, or through introduction of a new reserve currency. De-dollarization is a response of China to Western initiatives, be it is the tariff or the policy of de-linking and de-risking their economies from China. So similarly, China feels that its linkages and its trade in terms of dollar, that also makes it vulnerable to future sanctions. And the de-dollarization is also deemed
Especially
important by
after 2022, of course, US sanctions and freezing of Russian accounts, of course, led to acceleration of this movement. What's your take on this?
Yeah, so this is what I'm saying, that it was the excessive use of sanctions. So that's why now de-dollarization has picked momentum. To me, Trump's latest statement is a negotiation chip through which he would like to get this initiative, the BRICS idea of developing their own reserve currency, slightly slower by extracting them from the enhanced tariffs. Otherwise, it would be a lose-lose proposition where American consumer would be the biggest losers, because it would be the American consumer who would have to pay for the cost of enhanced tariff on different imports that come to America. And we should also keep in mind that it's not only the BRICS. Trump has also threatened to impose 25% tariff on Mexico and Canada, the two northern and southern neighbors, if they don't stop the flow of drugs and flow of immigrants. He has also announced increasing tariff to Chinese projects up to 60%. So he's using the tariff as a negotiation chip, as a stick, and then perhaps he will try to negotiate it. So we need to see that how it evolves. But I think it's in our interest, countries like Pakistan, that there should be more than one currency in which we can trade, and in which we can actually deal with the rest of the economy, so that we can reduce our dependence on US dollars.
Right. And Dr. Abid Sulehri, in your opinion, does this, of course, shift from currency unipolarity to multipolarity, does it provide more opportunities or more challenges to developing countries, including Pakistan?
You say in the theory there are already more than one currencies. IMF basket, it has euros and pounds and the Chinese yuan as their reserve currencies and SDR, special drawing rates. It's not about the currency, it's about the countries and the economic powers which are behind that currency, because the currency would only be accepted and would be utilized in global trade if there are more and more countries behind it. Now, when we are talking of BRIC or G20, these are some of the groups which have a larger share of global trade and economy. So, of course, they will give their credibility, enhanced credibility to any new currency which is introduced. Otherwise, euro is a currency and the pound is also one of the accepted currency, but the world is still trading in dollars. So it's not only introducing new currencies, it's also about the geopolitical power, and it's in the interest of developing countries to have more than one power. A multipolar world is in our interest rather than dealing with a unipolar world, where we would be at the whimsical opinion of the single power who can make or break, strengthen or weaken the developing countries.
Right, and Dr. Abid, in your opinion, what could be the repercussions for global businesses and global trade, international trade, if US dollar is replaced in coming years or maybe in a coming decade? How do you see that?
I don't see it happening, both of these things, these tariffs on Brics and overnight replacement of US dollars. Of course, it will take time, and because of the technological advancement, I think it's already time to move to new ideas of working and trade. So there are now a number of countries who have legalized and regulated the digital currencies and cyber currencies. They are increasing in number. So with the digital transformation and with the use of era of fourth industrial revolution backed by artificial intelligence, I think this paper money and the metal coins, those would be history, and in that history, of course, new trends would be welcomed and they would be adopted rather quickly. So let's see how the future unfolds for us.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Abid Sulehri, for joining us in today's program and for your valuable input. Shaharyar, coming back to you, of course, when we look at this de-dollarization campaign, that is, of course, more and more countries, especially from the global south, are now becoming part of it. So, in your opinion, what are going to be challenges and opportunities for these developing countries if US dollar is to be replaced?
So Maryam, right now, if you look at the global reserves collectively of all countries, they come to round about $12 trillion, or little more than $12 trillion. And if you make an analysis and if you look at the latest data that was shared by the IMF, around 58% of those global reserves, those countries are holding in US dollars. And so that comes to around about $6.6 trillion of the global economy, of the global reserves of the countries, they are held in US dollars. And if you look at like other currencies, the second, the strongest currency I would basically rate according to what the IMF is saying is the euro, which is around $2.2 trillion. A lot of countries are holding euros as well. And when you talk about like developing or like upcoming superpowers like China, their share in the global reserves is around 2%, which is the Chinese RMB. So even right now, if you see the whole global financial architecture, the US dollars looks like the strongest currency, and it would hold its value for the next coming years for now. When it comes to developing a country currency which would represent an economic bloc, for example, in this instance, we keep on talking about the Brics economic framework, and they're coming up with like various different ways. Like there's also talk about the digital currency, the Brics pay system. the whole international financial architecture is standing on the financial systems developed by Western countries, led by the US. The SWIFT payment system, the international financial architecture, the whole architecture is standing on the US dollar and the currencies being held by.
That now there are talks of course, changing that without, of course, shaking the roots of the whole system. There are talks of alternatives like Asian IMF and alternative to Asian Monetary Fund as well, and also changing the key positions and giving them to countries that are belonging to, of course, South as well. So do you think this is going to be feasible in the long term?
So Maryam, I think the discussion has started. The ideas are being discussed on various tables, but to practically implement it, it will take some time. And there will need to be a lot of like global consensus right now, and that consensus will be coming up from economic rising powers. And Brics in that context will play a very important role. Right now, this whole discussion took a lot of like precedence and took a lot of like importance when Russia invaded Ukraine, and it was basically isolated from the global financial architecture and was taken off from the SWIFT payment system. And then the whole trade relationship between Russia and China, it started happening in the local currency. Right. And that is when the whole discussion on this whole scenario started taking place. Right now, if you want to like develop a new currency, Dr. Abid Sulehri very clearly pointed out towards emerging technologies that are coming up, like digital currencies. There are also like a lot of discussion on cryptocurrencies. A lot of like even developing countries or upcoming economic powers are also moving towards that.
Same question to Mr. Xizhong. Mr. Xizhong, in your opinion, what are the reasons that traditional alternative currencies like euro, yen and pound have failed to match dollar's influence in past few decades? And do you think that the digital currencies or Bitcoin could potentially gain traction in coming years, maybe?
Me? I think the US dollar, the position, we cannot easily change. The dollar position will be very strong in the next many years. And now the United States has been consistently threatening the world by wielding the tariff stick. While raising tariffs by the United States will indeed have a certain impact on the world. However, I believe the United States itself will be the most affected. If the United States imposes tariffs as 100% as Trump has claimed, and as proposed by Trump, so countries around the world will, I think, retaliate. And the impact on China will be very limited, I think, because China has its own big market. If China implements countermeasures, the impact on China's GDP will be only 0.4%. If all countries, raise tariffs on American goods, that is retaliation, the impact on China might be only 0.25%. The imposition of tariffs by the United States on goods imported from various countries will have a very significant impact. If only China retaliates, the total import volume of US dollars goods could decrease by 40%. The impact could be even greater if all trading partners retaliate. As US exporters lose market share overseas, then they will face more intense competition in the domestic market, displacing even more foreign producers. Furthermore, retaliation would deal a severe blow to the US economy, depending production and demand, and putting further pressure on the import of immediate or manufactured goods.
Right, right. And Mr. Xizhong, in your opinion, how has the petrodollar been influential when we talk about global, of course, dominance of dollar?
Now, one way is that like China, Russia, China, Russia, uh, we have nearly 95% of bilateral trade is settled, in our own currencies. This is one way out. Another is, uh, as to create like a BRICS currency. And I've noticed that on October 18th this year, Putin talked about the de-dollarization process of BRICS countries when answering questions. He mentioned that BRICS member countries are exploring the possibility of conducting transactions using their own currencies. Discussions on establishing a common currency for the BRICS countries have also been going on for some time, but the time is not yet ripe. It's
Right,
not the
right. And
proper.
Mr. Xizhong, you also mentioned that around 95% of now bilateral trade between China and Russia is being taken place in yuan and ruble. How do you think that this is significant in the context of when we look at BRICS growing share of global GDP? Do you think this is going
That
to be? Do you think this is going to be challenging U.S. Global dominance as, of course, unilateral currency,
I think
unipolar
this is
currency?
one of the, I think this is one of the ways how to avoid American dollar hegemonism. So because America is using the dollar as weapons to control other countries. So we have to find out some ways for ourselves to be out. So use our foreign own currencies to have a bilateral trade. This is one way. And like in between China and Pakistan, we can also do the same. We use our own currencies so as to avoid, that kind of hegemonism, financial hegemonism from America. This is one way out.
Dr. Nasir, coming back to the recent statement made by President-elect Donald Trump, how do you see this is going to be impacting international and financial trade if US actually, of course, implements 100% tariffs on global trades? How this is going to be impacting those countries, and also how US economy is going to be impacted by this?
I think this is a kind of threat. Trump can propose 100% or 200%, even 300%, but that is not possible because if really 100% tariffs are implemented, then it is America who will be affected most. So this is not possible.
Right, right. And of course, Russian president has also said that US has been using weaponization of US dollar as currency. How do you see this response, and do you think, of course, like you said, that this is practically not possible, and keeping in mind we know the personality of President-elect of course, Donald Trump, is going to be, of course, backtracking from his statement as well. How do you think US policies, including sanctions, are leading more and more countries towards de-dollarization?
Like America's sanction to Russia for so many years. I think it is extreme sanctions. Therefore, tried all the ways to sanction Russia, but the Russian economy has been going on quite well. It's not much affected because, like China, like Pakistan, like Russia, we are big economies. We have our own markets, so sanctions will not work. and also 100%, 200% tariffs would not work. And America, not China, another point is that China, American economies, with two economies are highly integrated. If no, this kind of tariffs are implemented, then not only China might be affected, but it would not be much affected because China itself is a big economy. And at the same time, Americas, will be affected more, I think, than other countries. And so that's why, this kind of American policies, the American business people are strongly against. And the business people, because they have business in China, they would like to have good relations with China. They would like to have business with China. Without, the Chinese market, they cannot survive.
Right, right. And Shaharyar, coming back to you, of course, we know that US sanctions on Russia was one of the reasons we saw an intensification of a global de-dollarization movement. Do you think that if these countries or BRICS move towards de-dollarization, it is going to be impacting not only US ability to impose financial sanctions, but also the global alliances are going to be shifting?
So Maryam, when it comes to the emerging economies or the stronger economies, especially under the framework of BRICS coming together and developing an alternative financial mechanism for trade between cross borders, Russia and China are already doing it in their local currencies. But to come up with a new currency or collectively a new financial mechanism that has these challenges, and I'll tell you some of the challenges that are very prevalent in the whole BRICS framework, because we are discussing this mostly in that aspect. So when it comes to BRICS countries, there is a lot of like economic divergence between most of the countries there. Brazil is in South America, then there's India, then there's Russia, there's China, there's South America, and there are like a lot of other countries which are joining this framework. So most of these countries have very diverse economic systems. They have like diverse
And what about
financial
gold?
systems as well.
What about gold, Shaharyar?
So, well, generally a lot of like countries hold a lot of reserves in gold, but now since I think like around the 80s or 90s, even gold has been replaced by the US dollar. And I've like given you some numbers initially that a lot of like foreign reserves of countries in their like state banks respective, they hold US dollar as the reserve currency. So even gold for a lot of countries has been replaced by the US dollar. Other than that, even within the BRICS framework, these countries have political differences. They have like different varying policies when it comes to geopolitical developments as well. And we know as India is also very close to the US, and India is being hedged as the country that would basically check China's economic rise as well. So there are like a lot of geopolitical implications as well within the whole framework of BRICS. Other than that, institutional frameworks are very important in developing financial mechanisms and exchange mechanisms, especially the SWIFT payment system. China, Russia, and the BRICS countries, they will have to develop their own financial mechanisms to basically counteract or make an alternative pathway in the global financial architecture that is dominated right now by Western banking systems and the US-led economic financial system. So yes, in the short run, maybe like big economies, and especially we have this model in which Russia and China are like doing their trade in local currencies. Even in the Kazan declaration that happened a few months ago, there wasn't a talk about any alternative currency as per se, but there was discussions on developing frameworks in which cross-border trade can happen in local currencies.
Right, right. And that takes me to my next question, that is to Dr. Nasir. Dr. Nasir, in your opinion, what are the reasons that smaller countries or developing nations specifically are becoming increasingly dissatisfied with US dollar?
I think the situation is very clear. When we talk about the alternative currency model, we have to look into our own strength. Even if being like Pakistan, if dissatisfied with the dollar, but what are the alternative to us? We have a like arrangement with the China to trade in the local currency, but what about the outcome of those arrangement? Yes, we should be very clear and we should be very optimistic about the way most of like around more than 100 countries, they solely depends on the dollar. There are the few chunks of the country, as we mentioned, the Brics is one part of that. To some extent, they have their own leverages to develop even an alternative financial model. But to materialize this as a new currency in the global era, it would be very, very, very difficult in at least in the
What
coming
are
years.
those challenges,
Maybe in a decade's
Nasir?
time, it would.
And what are those challenges that these developing nations, especially small developing nations, could face if they look for alternative to US dollar?
You know, to be honest, it would be very difficult. Even within the BRICS, you can always find some difficulties because, as other panelists suggested, that there are geopolitical differences, there are economic priority, all have a different stages of development. So every country within even the BRICS have a different priority in terms of their economic interest. They don't want to lose. Yes, America is using dollar as a bargaining chip, as a weapon, as an instrument to control the rest of the world, and they will use in the coming years, in the coming decade, because they have the strong footage. The entire countries in the world, other than a couple of countries, they all rely on the dollar for the exchange as exchange medium. In the coming year, the important part that Sulehri mentions in his talk, that this digitization of the currency, you know, that we are moving toward the free currency zone. That would be the future. There would be a no currency in the coming years, and we all have to trade on these digital instruments. Maybe what we call it as a bilateral trade, maybe we call it as a barter system, whatever we call it. But yes, this is a threat to US as well, because now the global community is moving very fast toward this currency less environment, and they are developing their own mechanism. Of course, it will take a time, and especially it
Do
would
you think
be
this is going to be a good thing for developing nations who, of course, do not have those kind of facilities when we talk about development?
you know the when this is a heaven for us, if we have our own resources, we deal with the dollar. We entire debt is dollar denominated. We have to make all the payment. We have to trade with the rest of the world in a dollar. So how we can disintegrate ourselves from the global financial institution, global financial market? Yes, if we have our enough resources, we have enough production. Yes, the advantage we have the big markets. Yes, the advantage BRICS have is a big market. So they can exploit that advantage. They can play differently. They can provide incentive to like-minded countries in terms of giving, like the Russia is trading with China in the local currency. Russia is also putting some effort to trade with India in other mode of financing. Pakistan is trying to push some sort of trading with the China in the local currency. But look at if we have to trade with the KS, can we trade in the local currency? We can't. Because they are linked with the global financial institution. How BRICS can disintegrate those countries from the dollar because they have their own interests. So this is all a geopolitical situation.
Right, right,
Yes,
right.
it
And
would be very difficult for US as well. They can't straightforward impose 100% tariff, 200%. It's a good wish list, but yes, they have to compete with the rest of the world. Big loser will be US. It's not about China. It's not about Russia. It's not about the India, because uh, ultimately it's the US citizen those have to pay.
right, and Mr. Xizhong, when we talk about de-dollarization and talking about, of course, a multipolar currency, do you think if we move towards a multipolar currency system, this is going to be stabilizing or further destabilizing international financial system?
I think under the present situation, and to deal with the American, I call it financial dominance or financial hegemonism, the only quite promising uh, development trend is Brics. I think now Brics originally it had 5 countries, member countries, founding countries, and now it has expanded to 10 countries. I think more emerging economies should also
They are
join
inviting more
the
countries, of course.
yeah, join the group of BRICS. And because, I have noticed uh, the BRICS population now is altogether is 3.5 billion, representing 45, nearly half of the world population. And with now the present 10 member countries, BRICS share in the global economy has also risen to approximately 37%. That is more than 14.5% held by G7 and the European Union. So the economy is stronger than G7 and the European Union. According to the BRICS Wealth report released in January this year, the BRICS group currently holds a total of 45 trillion in investment wealth and produces about 44% of the world's crude oil. So let's see, stronger and stronger uh, mm, this organization will become. And then, if this group develops and includes more emerging economies, then we may discuss, we may change the present, system to a more balanced or more reasonable world order. I think we have to strengthen this organization. Let's see. But as all the experts have mentioned, U.S. dollar status is very strong. It's not easily to change it. It will take maybe decades. But at the same time, in order to have a better world, all the emerging economies in the world should get united under the flag of BRICS. Thank you.
Right, right. And Shaharyar, how realistic are these predictions that Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies could absorb a portion of global reserves?
Well, Mariam, right now, a lot of countries are discussing developing their own cryptocurrency or some form of crypto monetary exchange, but that is also like far from reality as of right now. Maybe in the future, when cybersecurity or other aspects of exchange can be strengthened, and a global consensus can be built on moving the economy towards more digital currencies or alternative forms of exchange, then yes, maybe in the coming future that transition can be made. But right now, as we discussed, the whole idea of the international financial infrastructure and the architecture on which the whole global financial system stands, right now it's dominated definitely by the US dollar and backed by European currencies like Euro, GBP, even Canadian and Australian currencies are there. But with time, if there's a framework right now, coming up with a new currency, I think that would be a big challenge. But developing local exchange frameworks in which countries can basically do cross-border exchange of goods and services in terms of like international trade, any mechanism that can be developed in making that exchange in local currencies, that would be the first step in the so-called regime of de-dollarization. Maybe later on multiple currencies in terms of digital infrastructure can be developed, but developing a new currency, I think that would be a non-starter.
Right, right. And Dr. Nasir, lastly, the question from you that since a lot of countries are moving towards and campaigning for de-dollarization, what lessons can Pakistan learn from countries like Russia, China, to, of course, move towards this and to become part of de-dollarization process if this holds any future?
I think we should be very clear. So for Pakistan, the message is very clear. We have to create export surplus at the very upfront. Then the question would come how to trade with the rest of the world. Yes, we should be very clear that the world is moving very fast toward the new blocks, new region, new currency, new financial order, new financial mode, and we should be very vigilant. And for that, the four super important for us to create export surplus. We have to trade with the rest of the world. We have to align our objective with the rest of the world. We have to make our position very clear in our geopolitical scenario. Currently, we are struggling with the foreign debt. That is the real issue. The IMF with us, they are asking about the financial arrangement. We are
And
lacking
how
in dollar.
significant is IMF going to be in this currency diversification process?
It play a very significant role for all kind of developing country. Look at their debt profile, how you can repay the entire debt in the local currency. You have to have a dollar in your reserve, and in the coming years and decade it would be very difficult for us to even get rid of this debt. So we should try to create a balance. They are not asking we can't trade with China, but what kind of export surplus we have and we can trade with China. So for that we have to create our export surplus. We have to trade with Afghanistan. We have to trade with the China. We have to trade with other neighboring country as well. But for that we should have to have our own strong economic position. Otherwise,
Right.
the other country will definitely get benefit of this whole transition, and we might miss the train.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Nasir Iqbal, for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Mr. Xizhong, for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Mr. Shaharyar Khan, for joining us in today's program. Of course, the shift from currency unipolarity to multipolarity will be taking time, but the process has already started. That's all from Game Changer tonight. Take care. Allah Hafiz.